Beautiful. Live on YouTube.
Great. Okay. Live on YouTube. And
Not sure how anybody will find out, but we'll put our effort out there that people will discover this.
Absolutely.
And we're recording.
Okay. You're listening to The Voice of Reason. I'm Dr. Len Saputo here with Francesco Garofoli. A lot of the shows we do, we're talking about what's happening in the world today. And it's in a turmoil, there's no doubt. And now a week from now, we're going to find out some very interesting things about ourselves. And whatever happens, I have great confidence that we, the people of the United States, are going to find our way out of this. We understand who we are because we have a history that's taken us to where we are. And we can move forward together as a community. And if we can have compassion, real heartfelt compassion for ourselves and for all of our people that are in our community, whether they seem to be the enemy or they seem to be the one that support us, we're going to do this in a way that's a little bit different, in a peaceful way. It's got heart to it, but also has an intention that's clear about what we're going to stand for and what we're not. And if we can move together with that kind of compassion, that kind of organization, and that kind of commitment, what's going to stop us, Francesco?
The thing is unity, Len. You know, when there's unity, there's power. Like we talked about integrity before. When there's integrity, there's an integral core. That's an unshakable force. And as we've been hearing a lot, if you watch the media, people keep reminding everyone else that we are more in numbers than them, whoever them is. If we keep blaming, right, on a system, a deep state, whatever it is, they are still nothing compared to the number of the masses when we are unified. But the thing is, we have to have that empathy between each other. That's the key.
Well, once we have that and we're on the same page and we're committed to it, and we do that whenever we get our dander up, and we get to a certain point before we get our dander up. But once we get there, we come together. If you see some kind of big event happen, something like a tsunami or an earthquake, or there's fires all over the place, like there are in California right now, like the state's on fire. We come to the rescue of our neighbors and our friends and everybody in it. It's not just the people that we are connected to that we know well. They're just people in general. People give the shirts off their back for people they don't even know. That's the kind of thing that when we come together, we're unstoppable. And that's the spirit of America. That's the democracy. That's the way we move when we're really on our toes. And we know that we're faced with something that if we don't take some kind of action, there's going to be a big problem. And we're kind of in that situation now. We're facing a lot of challenges that don't make a lot of sense to us, that are destroying our community. They're destroying our economy. They're destroying our health. We lost our jobs. We lost a lot of our health insurance. And nonetheless, we're still there. And we're holding hands and moving forward. And that's America.
Well, it's a good story, Len, but it's not really happening. You know, I mean, I love that image, and it's a great image.
It's growing.
We have seen such divisiveness right now. I mean, right in Pennsylvania is a big story right now.
Oh yeah.
Evidently, some rioting happening in the streets and so forth. There's a Walmart outside of town that has been ransacked for its third time.
Wow.
I mean, they've restocked. How many millions of dollars are in inventory for these people to go in? You talk about give the shirt off their back. People are stealing the shirt off of other people's backs right now.
That's true. That's
so
true.
There's a level of anger right now, and there's a level of frustration that until that's addressed, we will never get this cohesiveness that can change everything, which is so funny because people want change, and it's right available to everyone as long as we have a unified force.
Well, that's true. And it's the divisiveness and the separation and creating teams, one that wants this and the other wants that. It's Democrats or Republicans, it's black or it's white, or it's business or it's the little guy. All these things do separate us. But when I really firmly believe that when we are pushed to the wall and it looks like things are going to come down, we get together in a way that's different. If there's an earthquake, for example, We don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or if you're rich or poor. We stand by it. But I understand what you're saying too, because we haven't reached that point.
Right. So
And
what will it take then? The big
yeah,
question is, what is the tsunami? What is the earthquake?
yeah.
I feel like we've already gone through amazing seismic events right now.
Mhm.
If that's not big enough, I'm sad to think in my heart how bad it's got to get before people start realizing we've been duped
Yeah, well,
and
that's
they
right.
come together.
Well, you've got a good point there. I agree with that. And I don't know where that point is either. But somehow I have faith and trust in America and what it stands for over all these centuries. And you're right. If we don't come together and we don't find that turning point, all hell's going to break loose. And it's in the process now. The economy's flattening. We're not far from a depression. That we're losing the middle class. The businesses that we see in America that are small and medium-sized businesses are disappearing. If our economy falls flat and we have problems with even having money in your pocket because there is no money and it's all digital, that makes it even worse. So we're being affected by forces that we don't see, that are tearing us apart, and we haven't yet awakened to the fact that we have been duped, that we are in a situation that's terrifying because we don't see a way out, and nobody's moving from the grassroots level with the enthusiasm that we need to be able to move forward. So I will agree with you that unless that happens, what will we do? I mean, compassion's one thing, empathy is another, forming community is another, but it's got to be done with intensity, with commitment, and with the fervor that our forefathers had. We don't have that. You're right. We're done.
Well, look what happened with this whole Biden thing. Whether you like Biden or not, it's not important.
Yeah. No, it isn't.
But the Senate is hearing right now, they finally have looked at this situation of Biden's involvement in the Ukraine with his son and with himself and with his family. This took a year or more to even get to this level, but now it's in the Senate. It's not on the web, it's not some information. It's being heard by a Senate committee. This is the real thing.
Yep.
It took this long. This is how deep this lie has been. This is how deep this hidden agenda in the Obama administration is. Again, whether you like Obama and the administration and what it represented to you, that's beautiful. But the facts are there. And now real people, real bipartisan people are looking at a story that has been hidden, and it points to why we're in such a mess, because lies have been perpetrated and we've been duped to understanding how people have been, taking advantage, and Biden has been taking advantage. The facts are in, Len. Yeah. So hopefully when people see this, they realize, well, you know what? Maybe it's not about the parties at all. Maybe it's about us coming together as humans. Yes, and that's the human spirit that will change everything. When we stop thinking about Trump, we stop thinking about Biden, and we start thinking about, hey, isn't this about our life to be able to have the freedom that the forefathers and mothers had set up for us to live freely and just get through a day, make money, and go home and relax and keep our families healthy and fed and a roof over the top. That's all that we really want, the most people, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
A safe environment.
Yeah, well, there's another force that's involved too. And what it's doing is it's stopping the news to be spread. We don't have the freedom of the press here anymore. I think a lot of the press is owned by other forces than we can see if we look and try to find out who they are. I think people from China and from other sections of our community.
Trust me, a lot of Americans are involved in that. It's not just overseas people.
That's right.
And there are rich Americans who are pushing this agenda, like Bloomberg. Again, look at the facts. I'm not just talking out my ass and trying to have emotional feelings. I look at these things and I can't believe what's behind Gates and Soros and these people like Bloomberg. But the fact is, you've got people at grassroots level, Len, coming out with the human spirit, marching on the streets for freedom.
Yep.
We're starting to see information now getting beyond the blocks that the big media giants and the high-tech giants, they can't stop it when it's that way. We're seeing marches in the streets. We're seeing this information getting to the Senate. You can't hide it for that long. The truth will out.
Well, you're right. I agree with that. And it's a terrible thing to see. And when we don't have the ability to get information like that out sooner, this should have been out a year or 2 or 5 years ago when things happened. Look at the Benghazi stuff that's still not in the mainstream news. When you see things like that and you look at the Clintons and what they have done, it blows my mind to see that things can be that terrible. But they will come out. They will come out. And as they do, like you said, it's in the Senate now. The things that the Bidens have done, I don't know how we can continue with the election when we know that the people are as corrupt as they are. And then to try and hide it by just running away from it and having most of the news support them to be able to run away from it, except for Fox. Fox has got it all over the place. I wonder if people are listening to Fox, and why isn't it getting into the other newspapers? I mean, it's terrible.
So yeah, they have to realize that they have been duped, and it's very hard to admit that. Like, if you ever been scammed, you fight it to the end, even when the facts are in.
Yeah.
Hey, you just made a bad investment. You want to believe until you can't believe anymore. And we're at the point now where people have made an investment in a particular ideology. And that's beautiful because it had good intentions to it. But you've got to let go at some point for the greater good. Not to say that the Republicans are the greater good. I mean, I don't think any party is the greater good. The greatest good is when we all get unified, and somehow we have got to do that.
Well, I agree. I mean, that's been the thing all along.
Yeah.
And when we do that, then we have power, because like you said earlier, there are a lot more of us than there are of the people trying to control us and doing the things that they're doing. And if we can come together and not acquiesce to the demands that they're making, and that's starting to happen all over the world. People are saying, you can take the mask and shove it. I'm not going to wear the mask. I know I'm not going to stay home. When they look at the numbers and they see that there are no more deaths this year than there were last year, and that this business of COVID-19, there are no more deaths than there are usually from the flu. And we don't have a test that even diagnoses it right. And when we collect the numbers, they are
isolated the virus, for heaven's sakes. But what did we just read in that great medical report this week about hydroxychloroquine?
Yes.
And an early action protocol. As soon as a frontline doctor has diagnosed a person with SARS type of reactions or symptoms, you get them on this protocol, and the numbers, you read it, it was a long report. I read the whole thing. Amazing.
I did too.
And scientific and very clear.
Look, we knew this in March. There were doctors that came out in March when it was happening. And there was one doctor in New York, I don't remember his name, that did something like 800 consecutive patients in his practice. And he said nobody died. 800 people with COVID that was diagnosed by the way we diagnose it. Now, when you've got numbers like that and it's suppressed, and then articles come out in the major journals, the New England Journal of Medicine and the Lancet, and you see them putting out information that's obviously false, that's coming from a board of editors that reviews all these people carefully, and they knew it was false. I read it and I went, this is absurd. Now, when you take a board that looks at it, they're really experts at looking at that, but they printed it anyway. Why would they do that? There's something going on behind the scenes that we're not being told about. Why would a guy like Fauci say, oh, hydroxychloroquine's a bad thing? Why would he say you have to wear the mask and isolate? We don't even have the data to do it. There is so much information out there that's wrong. And they're coming back with us, the people that are in denial of that, and saying you're giving misinformation out there. And there's thousands and thousands of doctors that know that this is wrong, and they're trying to do what they can to help people, and they've been blackballed. They can't get the information out, and the authorities like the CDC, the WHO, the National Institutes of Health, all those organizations are conspiring to stop this. When Madagascar came out and said, we've got artemisinin, we could use that, and it's working fine to stop people from getting COVID-19 and dying from it. And the World Health Organization reviewed it, and they came in and said, "Oh no, you can't use that. It hasn't been proven." And the president of Madagascar said, "You can stick it, you know where," and he's doing that anyway. That's sort of what it's come down to. So if you think that makes sense, you better read things again, because the only way it makes sense is to say things are fitting together in a puzzle that look like a horrible conspiracy. I hate to say that because I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I want to think the right things the best that I can. But when they aren't right and you see it and you've got documentation from, doctors all over the world saying, we've got a way to treat this disease now and people should not be dying if they're treated properly, something's awfully wrong. It's time to wake up. Maybe that's what it's going to take, is to listen to stuff like this and to know that we're not crazy. We've been studying it for 9 months now, put in 100,000 hours, made more than 80 videos on the topic. We're educated on this thing, and we're watching it crumble beneath us as people continue to do the things that they're doing that don't make sense if you've got a logical mind.
But the good thing is people are coming out and reading. They're finding it outside of mainstream media.
Right.
They're following their heart. They're going to the streets now and non-violently saying, I stand for this message.
Yeah.
It's a positive message. And the positive message, I think, in the long run will always win. And somehow that positive message will get the dissenters to finally realize, you know what, it's better to be on the side where we all work together. We can work out the specific details.
That's right.
Specific issues. But if we come together as a single humanity that really wants the most simple things, really.
Yeah.
Everybody's asking for anything too complex. Everybody wants a chance to live a free life, no matter what race, creed, or color you are. And when we're in that good space, people look kindly. And you use the word compassion. I hate the word compassion personally. Compassion means to be in the pain of another person's suffering. Did you know that?
Empathy, I think.
No, empathy is different.
Tell me the difference.
Empathy is to observe and appreciate the other person's suffering, but to stay in your power so you can help them.
Okay.
Compassion means I will fall into your pain. Remember the passion of Christ?
Okay.
That means the suffering of Christ.
That's beautiful.
Passion comes from the Latin root for suffering, and actually from the Greek root for pity. So to be compassionate means I have pity on another person. We'll tell you, it's not empowering to be compassionate then, because I don't have pity on anybody. I see somebody with a challenge and I will do everything I can to rise them up, to work together to rise up so we can all meet at the heart level. So empathy is a much more powerful word and a much more powerful intention. Sounds good to be compassionate, but you don't want to fall into the suffering and pain of another person.
Yeah.
This is what disempowers people. This is the illusion of what we see in so many movements recently, where people are falling into this cascading, I feel your pain, and it has no solution.
Yeah.
It has no path of empowerment.
Maybe my history as a doctor explains some of that, because when I do see people come in the office and they're sad and they're hurting, I feel their pain. And I feel
you're empathetic.
Yeah, I am empathetic.
And that's the key. That's why you're a great doctor and why people love coming to you as patients. But we have to be careful about the compassion part, because even though it sounds good, it carries an energy that doesn't help.
That's a great distinction.
Very interesting.
If we can move forward with the empathy that we need to be able to understand what's going on and feel what's going on, and then support the people who are suffering with good ideas about how to move forward, that's the way to go. So that's fine with me, Francesco.
Yeah, because if I see somebody who is struggling with a historic issue, we'll say, and I go compassionate with them, I'll fall into their pain, I'll pity them, and now we're both vibrating at the same sympathetic level, because sympathy and compassion come from the same Greek root, actually, and sympathetica. And so now when I'm sympathetic, I'm moving with them like this.
Mhm.
Okay, so neither of us are getting anywhere but wallowing in this pity. Feels good. Some people love that feeling, but guess where it goes? Nowhere.
Okay.
When you're empathetic, you move, you sense the other person's pain, but you stay strong. In that way, that person can say, I see, why are you like that? Don't you feel my feeling? Yeah, I feel it, but let's move toward a solution.
Yeah.
That's why you're a good doctor, because you move them toward a protocol for healing.
Yeah, I
This is
do.
what we need at a society level.
Yeah, that's true. So, what's the recipe then for what we're experiencing now in the world with the turmoil that you see?
Stay strong and grounded in your heart's empathetic nature. See the pain of the other person, but don't fall prey to it. Don't pity them. Don't judge them, but let yourself be seen. Let them be seen by you and say, we are one. And together we can come up with powerful solutions.
Well, I think that that's right. That love, I think love prevails.
Love is the
In the
only
end,
way.
it's the only way to go. And if we can be that way with everybody, really, even the people that have different opinions than we do, and appear to be our enemies, because we are all one. It's not an easy road, because there's a lot of suffering that goes with that when you're under the pressure of dealing with somebody who's doing things to the community that are negative. So here we are now at a hard time. We got
You know, you can empathize with whatever pain is going through them. You can't sympathize with them because that's a lie. You're not in their shoes or in their culture or their religion or their skin. But you can empathize with them and say, wow, something's deep. I see how far it's pushed you. So now how can we come to a place to realize how much alike we are? That's
Well, we
big.
look at the positive things and try to build on those rather than tear it apart and deal with the things that seem to be differences. I think that's what's gotten us into the place that we are for the most part. And so now if we can realign with the full half of the glass and stay positive, that's a tremendous approach to take, because it's what we need to be successful at coming together, which is what this is all about. That's
You
what
know,
this
only
experience on
love,
this planet for us is.
yes. And only love and heart-centeredness can get you to that place.
Yeah.
Anything else is intellectual bullshit. Only listening to your heart and having that quiet so you stop judging the other person is wrong and you're right can slow the vibration down enough to all of a sudden say, wow.
Yeah.
And that's how you work as a doctor with
Yeah.
Qigong. How the only way I know how to do it. When I slow down enough, I watch that empathetic intuition take over and I could see things that don't make sense logically.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's how it works for you too, right?
Well, that's what a lot of it is about. If you talk about healing, you're talking about soul healing, about the deepest part of who we are. And that comes from exactly what you're saying. It's wanting to listen and to care about people and to be supportive the best that you can, knowing that you'll never be able to walk in their shoes and know what they're experiencing because we're different. But you can make an attempt to at least temporarily do the best that you can with that. And if you listen long enough, people will actually solve their problems themselves. They'll tell you what their problem is. And if you listen even longer, they'll tell you what the solution is because they know. Deep at the deepest level, they know. They may not be able to practice it, and they don't always do that. But that's my goal, is to be with people rather than treat a set of symptoms with a bag of tools. It's not about that so much, even though there are times when that's the way to go, because when people are in terrible shape, you want to try and make them feel better, but you don't want to just get them back on their feet and back to work. That's not about healing. That's about curing symptoms. Those are big differences. And so the idea then is to grow at the spiritual level, at the soul level. And that takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes empathy.
It takes empathy. And the love you show to your patients is what lets them love themselves enough.
There you
For
go.
that moment, they disengage from that epigenetic or historic or child pain, whatever it was that created that self-hatred or frustration or anger or unresolved emotion that created the symptoms in the first place.
Yeah. Well,
Simply broke down the weakest link of their body and it looked like a lung problem or a leg problem or a
oh
neuropathy.
yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
No, that's the surface. That's the surface. That's not the deepest reason why it's there. There's always a deep reason why we have the symptoms that we have. If we look long enough for that, particularly if we partner with our patient, then we're more apt to find out what the real reason is. It's not because people need to have penicillin or digitalis or some drug to try and eliminate a symptom because we have a drug that can make you feel better. It's about making sense out of why you're sick in the first place. And now we can ask the question, why is our culture sick at this time? What are we going to learn from this experience that we're going through? What can we learn? Because it's an opportunity to move forward in a way where we can bring peace and community to this country and to the world, because that's really what we want. Everybody craves to have a partnership with other people, to live by the golden rule and to support one another so that we have a village where our weakest link is what we focus our attention on and trying to make better. This has been a really good experience, Francesco. Thank you for the kinds of things that you've raised here and separating out the differences of the meaning of some words. Your knowledge of the etiology of different words comes in very handy. And it provides an understanding that you can't get if you don't know some of that. So this is where I think we have to focus our attention now.
So it's time for refining the way we look at the world,
yeah,
and engaging the heart.
Yeah.
And just like you do with your patients, that just that moment they feel loved and heard, they've already begun the healing process.
That's what brings us together.
Extrapolate that session you have with a patient to our community and to our country. Slow down and see things in a loving way without judgment. That's a very difficult thing to ask people who are angry on both sides of the fence. But when you do, you'll begin the healing process.
Yeah, and the better you get at it, the better healer you can be for yourself, for the person that you're with, for the community, and for the world. It's about that.
And I don't think the ultimate leader is in place yet. You and I have talked about that a couple of times, and maybe it's good in this moment to close up.
Sure.
That we don't support any leader as a solution right now. I don't see anybody on the horizon or existing as that leader who can do what we're talking about. But what's happening right now in history is the shift, the chaotic shift necessary to break up so much old, antiquated, stagnant shit that I believe, I trust that 4 years from now, we may, as a collective, if we can stay hopeful and loving, call in a leader who may be better reflecting this process you and I are talking about right now.
Yeah, well, the good news is that we're being taken care of. There's a creator out there who knows everything that's happening and is looking out for what the world needs now to become a better place. So with that in mind, it's a good place to close. I agree with you. If we have that kind of attitude and we make the best of what is dished out to us, we'll make the best progress that we can to evolve into better human beings who are more competent, who are happier, and can live with more love. So
that's good.
So we'll see you again next week on Monday. Go to drsaputo.com, and if you have comments or things that you'd like us to address, please let us know, because we would like to answer any questions you may have. We're very open to that. So have a great weekend and take care.
You, man. Peace.
Peace.